Okay, let's get started. Oh, I needed one of those. Equivocation. A key term in the argument changes meaning in the course of the argument. So we just had that, Christy, the other day. Actually, I think it was just me and Demetrius arguing over what a conflict was. It was like at the beginning of the argument, we were both kind of thinking like conflict is fighting, but by the end of it, it was like, no, Demetrius, you're really, in your mind, thinking like a conflict is, oh, our genders are in conflict? Well, I mean, they're not fighting though. So by the end of it, it was like that word came to mean for him, just that two things didn't match, they weren't the same. But for me, I was still thinking, conflict is one trying to stomp out the other. So kind of like that, where as the discussion goes on, it changes meaning. Sometimes it can bring up a better understanding of how each person feels, but also sometimes, maybe in a romantic relationship, cheating goes from, the ultimate worst, you did this, to, well, you still cheated because you looked at her wrong. It can change and morph and kind of still make somebody guilty of something or still make something so, even though we've broken down what it is. The other arguer in a defensive position might still kind of hold on to that word applying in some way. That's an equivocation. It can have negative effects. It's not the best way to argue. It's also used in humor. As we see here, he's saying, so much for the theory that carrots will make you see better. He's taking see as like an effect where the carrots would have a nutritional effect on your body, make your eyes better, to taking see as a literal sense and poking his eyes out with them, making him probably not see at all anymore. So the same word is used with two different meanings. We'll probably come across this in our examples as well. Amphibole. Amphibole. So our technical definition is when an argument contains a grammatical mistake that allows for more than one conclusion to be drawn. Let's eat, Grandma. Versus let's eat, Grandma. So that comma makes a world of difference. I like this one. If we take out the red, a woman without her man is nothing. If we put in some punctuation, a woman. Without her, man is nothing. Punctuation. Stop clubbing, baby seals. Aw. I loved it. They're so cute. I happened to have this up on my screen when my roommate walked in the room, and that's all he saw. He's like, you're working, huh? Like, actually, Rob, this is an amphibole. You want to see, this is the definition. But yeah. It didn't look like work at that exact moment, but I swear it's for class. Proof texting. Maybe I didn't make a definition. This might have just been something I came across in the reading and not as an actual definition, but proof texting is the practice of using decontextualized quotations from a document, often but not always a book or the Bible, and that's, what really struck home for me on this one, because you see that all the time, one thing taken out of context, to establish a proposition rhetorically through an appeal to authority. Those are other definitions. You don't need to worry too much about how they overlap at this point. When you read the document as a whole, it might not, in fact, support the proposition. So I think that's straightforward enough. We can probably all come up with an example of when that's happened, even if someone's just quoting you kind of admit, yeah, I said that, but in the context, lying was wrong when I wanted you to, not say this one thing, but now that you're hiding things from me, and it's a whole different gravity, no, you shouldn't lie in other situations.
So it's more or less for the kids.
Sometimes for kids, but also, for adults, to shame them as not following the Bible, and, what they're doing is contradictory to this one line of the Bible. Because if you take the Bible one line at a time, there certainly are things that conflict with each other. Mm-hmm. Things about condemnation versus passages about forgiveness, and you have to read those as a whole and not get caught up just on one, because in that case, you're not living the Bible's message to its full context. But it goes for other things like science and definitely politics. Really the thing to focus on is the context that something takes place in. Fallacy of division, an erroneous inference from the characteristics of an entire group or set about a member of that group or set. Penguins are black and white. Some old TV shows are black and white. Therefore, some penguins are old TV shows. So basically saying that if it's black and white, it's a penguin, or if it's black and white, it's a old TV show, or if they're Muslim, they're in ISIS. Okay? I mean, that's a really dangerous one that we're dealing with right now. If they're from Syria, they're a terrorist. These generalizations where one small sample of a group taints the whole group in the eyes of others. You want to mistrust the whole group, but just because that one thing happens to be Muslim and happens to be in ISIS does not mean that the entire huge portion of our world that is Muslim agrees with that. They're religious extremists. They're not living the view of many of those people, and those people are just as sad about what's been happening, and on top of that now have to live in fear because they're condemned as having the same skin color or religion. So
wouldn't this be like a stereotype?
it can be a stereotype, yes, definitely a stereotype. Like, all blondes are ditzes. Okay, there are definitely some blondes out there that could giving them a bad name, right, Christy?
My daughter, she's 17, but she's biracial, but she's dark haired. I'm like, I swear you should have been.
I tell that to my niece all the time. She's got dark hair too.
There are some ditzy brunettes out there as well.
But she's smart, but just some things she does.
Fallacy of composition. A tiger eats more food than a human being, therefore tigers as a group eat more food than all the humans on Earth. Let's see, we should have this one in here.
Wasn't that one of the questions on the homework? I could not find it.
It was in there. Division
Let's-
and composition. What I couldn't find is the halo effect.
I found that. It took me a minute, but I
It
found
was
that.
way in the middle of a random paragraph.
Yeah, it's like in a random paragraph. But I couldn't find that about the tiger.
I think I read that chapter like 4 times.
You want us
just
to write
find
this
the
on the
handle.
side?
Yeah, if you, let me get the definition.
It said, it was in there, like, right by the division, I believe.
We should have fallacy of composition. I'm wondering if my spreadsheet cut some stuff out of the page. Fallacy of composition is an erroneous inference from the characteristics of a member.
And your rating is what?
An erroneous inference from the characteristics of a member.
I don't even know how to spell that stuff.
Yeah, but I have to look at
Right,
it so I can be
just something
sure, like.
I'll put it on the screen for you.
Right, everybody keeps writing it down. We over here like, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to spell it the best way I can, but
I'll put it up there. No
I
problem.
guarantee it's gonna be right.
That's funny.
And that passage was just an example of
Yes, that the tiger thing was an example. So one tiger eats more than one person. That the tiger is a sample of the group of all the tigers in the world. And the human that eats less than a tiger is a sample of the human race. But it doesn't mean that the entire group of tigers eats more than the entire group of humans, obviously, because humans have killed most of the tigers, and there are far more humans than tigers at this point in the world. So you think just because one compared to one, makes the set compared to the set the same, and that's not true because there are factors such as number in the set, or maybe that one tiger is not representative of how much most tigers eat, certainly not a tiger cub. I take longer to get ready than my boyfriend does. Therefore, girls take way longer than guys to get ready. Maybe that's generally true, but there are some dudes out there that spend quite a bit of time curling their hair.
Are you the girl?
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm lying. Sometimes he definitely takes long. Or he thinks I'm going to take so long that, he waits till I'm, done to start. I'm like,
right.
really? Come on. It doesn't, this process ends, Okay. So that is a fallacy of composition. You remember them division is you look at the entire group. You're assuming something about the entire group from one member. This is composition. You're comparing two groups. Do we see how that's different?
Okay, that one you compare.
Yeah, fallacy of composition. You're taking one member from one group, comparing it to one member of the other group, but then you impose that comparison on how those two groups compare to each other.
Division was entire group or a certain member of a group?
Composition is taking
I'm talking about the fallacy of division.
division. This one, we actually have the definition for this one.
Yeah.
An erroneous inference from the characteristics of an entire group or set about a member of that group or set.
So it's just
You trying to write down the example?
the example, it's a specific member of that group is related to the whole group.
Let me think of how to explain.
It's for the division is I put a stereotype, blondes are, all blondes are dumb, but they're not dumb.
Here, let's see if the good old internet can help us out on this. I didn't bring in clips for everything today. Let's see if these ones are pretty. This guy usually gets.
Welcome back to Fallacy February with 90-second philosophy and current stuff. Today we're going to be continuing with fallacies of grammatical analogy, looking at the fallacy of division. Note, this is going to be the last of the kind of informal fallacies we've been doing. We're going to stay tuned. So the fallacy of division is just the opposite of the fallacy of composition. It's basically concluding parts have the same properties as the whole. It's fallacious for the same reasons the fallacy of composition is. It's just going in the opposite direction. Let's take a look at some examples. So, water is a very safe compound that puts out fires. Therefore, hydrogen and oxygen must be safe compounds that also put out fires. If you've ever taken a balloon of hydrogen and oxygen and put some fire next to it, you'll know this is fallacious. So, this book is very heavy, therefore all the pages must be heavy. Should be clear why that's a problem. All of the coins from ancient Rome have almost disappeared. This coin is from ancient Rome. Therefore, this coin has almost disappeared. This is a little bit different. It's clearly fallacious as well. That coin is not going to disappear just because all of the other coins are disappearing. It also is a problem with statistics. The average American family has 2.5 children. The Jeffersons are an average American family. Therefore, the Jeffersons have 2.5 children. Clearly, unless people have half a child, this is not the case. So that was the fallacy of division. Also, it is the modern square of opposition. Yesterday was the fallacy of composition and contradictory and undetermined. Tomorrow.
Wow, I was talking so fast.
He got straight to the point.
I don't see him actually doing one on composition. Let's see.
Welcome back
here
to
it is.
Fallacy February with 90-second philosophy and current stuff. Today we're going to be continuing with Welcome back to Fallacy February with 90-second philosophy and current stuff. Today we're going to be position, and I like it so much that I'm just going to offer it again here. So, simply because the parts have a certain property doesn't hold that's the problem behind fallacy of composition. So, you might think if all the bricks in the wall are red, then the wall would be red. Just as someone might argue, if everything in the universe has a cause, the universe itself has a cause. But there's a problem. What if all the bricks in the wall are small? Does it integral wall is small. I don't think so. The Great Wall of China is made up of pretty small bricks that can be seen in space. So the bricks being small doesn't entail the wall being small. So just because everything in the universe has a cause doesn't mean the universe itself must have a cause. So our examples are, each player on the team is good, therefore the team is good. Clearly you could have a lot of good players and a pretty bad team. All the ingredients in the recipe are delicious, therefore the Marmite anchovy surprise must be delicious. Should be pretty clear why that argument is fallacious. All the atoms in my body are invisible with me. Therefore, I am invisible. Also, it should be clear that just because all the atoms in my body are invisible, it doesn't follow that I am invisible. That was the fallacy of composition. Also,
Okay.
they is contradictory and undetermined.
Did that clear it up?
Yeah.
Does that help a lot? Okay, so we can see, like, based on the examples, they're two very different things. Like, let's go back to the definition, like, or the example I gave. Like, I'm a girl and I take a long time to get ready. Therefore, the group that is composed of girls, composition, all the girls together, they must all take a long time to get ready. Okay, and then back on division, we can see you're taking a sample and applying it to the whole group, but even though, division, think one small fraction, we're looking at one little fraction and we're thinking it is all like that. It's blurry, like, even to me, like, it's hard to come up with an example and think of which one it was. It's philosophy, so
It's
reasons in
judgmental.
circles, it's highfalutin. There are some huge nerds out there that are sitting around making YouTube videos of how to make. We got one chapter, so we're gonna push through it. And when I do it on the quiz, like, I promise I'll try to be as obvious and straightforward as I can about it. No trick questions. Give you a word bank. But they are good things to be aware of. Even if there's times where you're watching TV or a debate or something and you can't think of exactly what that word was, just be aware of the essence of it and be aware that there's a trick. And if you need to convince someone of something, feel free to use them too. Like, you can definitely sway people's thinking with these. This is why you should be aware of them. It's not to say that it can't be something that you use to your own advantage either. Ad hominem.
I like this one. I don't know why.
A fancy word for a very simple thing. Instead of presenting a counter-argument, we attack the character of the person who made the argument. Here we have a very rude goose. We have this goose saying, we share many genetic characteristics with ducks because we have evolved from a common ancestor. This goose doesn't want to be a duck, so he says, you're closed-minded and stupid and you eat corn. You don't know anything. Okay, that has nothing to do with the genetic sharing of genes with a duck. It's not a counter-argument. It's just honking and being mean. Here we have a circumstantial one. The woman is saying E equals MC squared. The guy is saying, you don't know what you're talking about because you're a woman. A circumstantial ad hominem attacks the circumstance of the person who is telling you something. I think one of the examples in the book is a father telling his son, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, and the son being unwilling to consider that proposition, saying, no, Dad, you smoke a pack a day, so you can't tell me that. Because the father's circumstance technically makes him a hypocrite, it doesn't mean what he's saying is wrong, it just makes him kind of hard to listen to. Okay, and here we have an appeal to pity. I think these are,
Was the circumstance one in there? I don't see it.
I'm sorry?
The circumstance.
I didn't put a definition in there. It's just to be aware of. It's a narrower category that
Okay.
an ad hominem can just be like, you're stupid and you don't know anything. Like, that's just a bland insult that you could call anyone stupid. You could claim anyone doesn't know anything. You're being mean. There's nothing to back it up. There's no evidence. A circumstantial one is when you specifically focus on insulting that person based on the position they're in. Or, like drug counselors a lot of times, or addicts themselves at one point, you're telling people like, oh, you shouldn't steal from your family, you shouldn't do drugs, you shouldn't be out on the streets at night, you should, leave that group of friends, and then the person being unwilling to listen to them saying, you did all this stuff too, how can you judge me, how can you say what I did was
Try
wrong?
to flip it on them.
Well, yeah, but people can, obviously change their life and now want to help and give back and say, yeah, I did these things. That's how I know they're wrong. But that's a circumstantial ad hominem. That's a circumstantial ad hominem fallacy. It's a tendency to rebuke the other's argument by attacking the circumstances that the other person is in. Appeal to pity is when pity is evoked in an argument but is irrelevant to the conclusion. The definition here is stated as a fallacy, like, trying to think, there was some examples in the book. You know, there's sometimes it's wrong to make people feel sorry for you. Other times, with the ones that I picked, contrast with the book because there's times it's not wrong to appeal to pity. Sometimes, you know, we live in a really indulgent society. Everything's pretty for us. We don't see starving children. We don't see too many stray dogs on the street. So to realize that there are problems in the world to evoke change, sometimes we need to appeal to pity and show a picture that is really heart-wrenching, that really makes us see the poverty over here and like dirty conditions that dog is in. It can definitely be used to try and money grab. And
Yeah, that's what I think
I
it is.
used the example in the book where a lady got pulled over for speeding.
Yes,
And
see, that's a bad one.
And she said, well, you know, I got a eviction notice today, and something else happened.
Her
So
boyfriend broke up with her.
Oh, something like that. And so she was trying to get out of the ticket, but it didn't have no reason. She still was wrong for speeding at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then it gave the example like, oh, I need to appeal to your pity because my son's in the backseat and just swallowed a nickel, and I'm trying to go to the hospital. Was the other example it gave. So this is more like swallowing the nickel. You know, if it's a skeezy charity that's going to give 2 cents on the dollar, then this might be more like the let me out of the speeding ticket because my social life is bogus.
Right.
So, and with these, I mean, they're not very transparent. So I guess the root of it is to look at charity, look where your money is really going, do some research. But in and of itself, appeals to pity in certain circumstances when they are trying to help and need to evoke your pity in order to gain recognition are not inherently bad arguments. Here, it is not an insult. Oh, you know, this was in the wrong order. But this is another circumstantial ad hominem. How can you convict this man of murder? He's an orphan. We're using his circumstance to,
So pity on them.
yeah, to rebuke the argument of, you know, what he did was wrong. In some cases, it has maybe a little bit of merit in the sentencing factors. Judges will consider, you know, were you abused as a child? How did you grow up? Should you be held less culpable than someone that made all these decisions? But in the guilt phase of a trial, you either murdered someone or you didn't. But in this case, they're pointing to the circumstance, not necessarily of the person arguing, but of the person defending themselves. So I wanted you to see that it works both ways, and it's not always against the person trying to make the point. Sometimes it's against the person on the defensive side where they argue that they are right or maybe less wrong because of a circumstance that has nothing to do with the actual conclusion, which is did he murder somebody or not. So, you know, just like we have the woman up here, yeah, she can do math even though she's a woman. He can be a murderer even though he was an orphan. Appeal to force. It's also referred to in the book as scare tactics. It's the use or threat of force to get another to accept a conclusion is correct. It can be physical, psychological, or even legal. You can also threaten to withdraw affection or favors if somebody does not agree with you. I like this one. I think this is really relevant with some of the things going on today. If you don't come to democracy, democracy will come to you. Saying that, you know, you should come to democracy. This is the way every country should be run. The people should be voting. It's the only thing that lets man be free and choose his own government and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if you don't accept it, we're going to blow you up. So you should probably just, you know, switch over to a democratic political system. There are better arguments for coming to the conclusion that you should live in a democratic country other than the fear of being blown up.
No, Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
I love him.
Appeal to popularity is an appeal to popular opinion to gain support for a conclusion. At this time, I also want to look at on the last page, about 6 up, inappropriate appeal to authority, is when we look to an authority outside the field that is under investigation. One of the cited examples in the book is definitely when we have a celebrity. Like, do you think Ozzy knows very much about margarine?
No.
No, probably not. That's a much younger Ozzy too. He was probably much cooler when this ad was taken.
But if he would talk about crayons, I would, because he loves to color.
I remember that from his show that he's actually
He
a
colors
pretty,
with his granddaughter.
he's a pretty good abstract painter. Let's check out his art.
I love him. I just think that he is incredible.
That's
That's
what's of him. I don't think these are his actual paintings.
He does a lot with Pearl, his other granddaughter. He doesn't do so much because she just was born.
Are those Jack's kids?
Yeah, Jack has 2 kids. He would have had 3, but she had a miscarriage.
Oh. Okay, I guess his work isn't easily accessible online. Oh, I think that.
If you want to know how I know so much, I follow him.
What, on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
Him and Sharon and Kelly and I've met him. So when I went to concert and he was walking by and he noticed that I had his shirt on and he stopped and signed it and he was just so nice to talk to. Everybody's like, oh, you can't understand him, but you can understand him when he's very slow.
Yeah.
And Sharon's incredible.
I like her a lot. I mean, she's good because she does very good things with her
And
time and her money.
And Kelly loves rescuing animals. She's an animal lover, like you would not believe.
Yeah.
She just rescued an animal last weekend that was going to be she saw it and the puppy was thrown out of the window and she grabbed it and was going across the road. So she brought it home and just took care of it.
So she has the advantage of using popular appeal to affect good change.
Yes.
So here we have Justin Bieber. We have a guy, a prepubescent guy, giving us advice on nail polish. One less lonely girl, suggesting that if you're lonely, but you wear Nicole nail polish, Justin Bieber is going to come hang out with you. You're going to be happy to have this cute, fuzzy little critter curled up next to you. You're not going to be lonely anymore. I know. I know. Sorry. Believe me, I know. So we have guys selling girls stuff. Here we have a girl selling a guy stuff. If you eat this hamburger, you're probably not about to get her. If you eat 10 of those hamburgers, you are definitely not about to get her. But in the same way, it makes us want to, well, it makes a guy want to look at that a little bit
Sex
longer.
sells.
Yes. Sex sells, which means we need the opposite gender
I want to go to Carl's Jr.
Who's that?
That's Carl's Jr. and Hardee's.
Okay. I don't even know. I just typed in sexy hamburger ad. Got my example. We also have girls selling girls things because we want to look like Kim Kardashian. She probably works out in much more expensive shoes. Doesn't wear
And do you know
Skechers
those
herself.
shoes, they got sued?
Yeah, those are actually really bad for your feet.
It killed your back, your calves, and your
Yeah. So yeah, there she is in a sports bra, looking like she's
When it
about
comes
to
to Kim Kardashian.
work out, and that's a female selling a female an item. We also have males selling male items. We had that double standard with Barbie versus He-Man. You know, guys aren't immune to having physical insecurities either. They're just not allowed to express them as much as females. So we have Arnold, who is chemically enhanced just as fake as Kim Kardashian is by certain substances and compounds and spray tan and hair extensions, like a million different things going on there. Here, his physical chemistry is altered more on the inside molecular level, but still, we're gonna say, drink the totally legal FDA-approved protein shake, and you'll achieve what he has.
All you have to do is just work out. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
You do have to eat right. You do have to
Yeah,
eat
that's
protein as your muscles break down. You need the protein to rebuild your muscle fibers so that you do bulk.
Eating is 60%.
But I don't think you could ever get like that.
He was on steroids. He's
Right.
admitted it. He was
Like
roided up. Guys don't typically get this muscle stuff right there up around their neck
No.
like they're a
It's like
rodeo
false.
bull.
It's like giving people false hope.
It is. Is this?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Like if
I
you
mean,
wear
no,
those
you
shoes, you're
work-
gonna be
yeah.
Kim Kardashian.
yeah,
No.
I'm gonna have that big old booty and those
Just
nice
like
boobs.
she came out with that one pill that had something about they sued her, the people sued her.
It is about
The pregnancy pill or
It's
something.
about morning sickness. She
Yeah.
swears by this pill because she's pregnant and she had morning sickness.
And she
the-
advertised it, and then everybody sued her
and everybody's
because they
using
didn't
it and
do
it doesn't do it as
they
well.
didn't do any chemical work on it.
People
She
are
was just advertising.
So here's something to be aware of. Supplements, guys, are not FDA approved. It's not like a medicine that you get, maybe over the counter, but, even from the pharmacy, like those go through rigorous tests. FDA has to first go through animal experimentation to show that it might have some beneficial effects, and then they approve small human trials where, they give half the people a placebo, half the people the real drug. There's very regulated studies to see that it's working. So that's very different than walking into GNC and we have fish oil and pomegranate juice and guava extract and pills that say that they have it in there. Some of those pills contain mostly just like flour and maybe 1% of guava extract or whatever. Like they don't have to do anything. They don't have to pass any test in order to sell it to you with a claim. Supplements are not regulated. They use kitschy colors and false claims and all sorts of tactics to sell it to you. You need to be very careful. Likely the thing that's best for you isn't the most expensive and isn't in the shiniest package and isn't very, very pretty looking and needs to be coupled with other things like diet and exercise to have the full effects.
Just sort of like people that are in the gaming community, they drink this Gamma to stay awake because it's got a high caffeine. And they're, you do this and you're going to be as good as Nate Shot, who's one of the guys. Not really.
You can wake me up as much as you want. I am not about to succeed in a video game.
No.
That is just like
Between
out of my realm of capability.
I know. It's like you drink this, you're going to be as good. No.
Once we got away from there just being an A button and a B button, that's about the time I veered away from controllers. So you have anything with like 3
I
back
want the
pedals? No. No.
Yeah.
I don't want anything.
Multiple triggers on the back of it, 8 buttons, 2 joysticks.
too.
I'm not doing that.
My son's like, here, come play with me. I'm like, okay, so I'm sitting here playing with him, and I'm getting killed as much as she is. And they're laughing all the background. Who's playing? My mom. We'll get a lot of kill count on her.
I could cover one in peanut butter and give it to a dog to chew on it, and it'll probably beat me at
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat. Okay. Appeal to ignorance. The assertion that something is true simply because no one has proven it false, or that something is false simply because no one has proven it true. This duck says, you can't say God doesn't exist without any proof. You can't say God doesn't exist without any proof. The same can be said, for aliens. We don't really know. There's no way to conclusively get to the bottom of that. Here we have this science guy. I don't know. Therefore, aliens. And we get to them a lot with ancient societies where we have no idea how they made the crystal skulls or built the pyramids or made certain predictions or had astrological and mathematical findings. We don't have any proof that they had the technology that we needed to get there. We don't know how they came up with it. Therefore, aliens. But at the same time, you can't say that's not true because we don't have any proof that that didn't happen. So that is an appeal to ignorance. Ignorance is a negative sounding word, but we did go over that in one of these classes where I said, I'm ignorant about cars and I don't care. Ignorance simply means that you don't know. Ignorance simply means there's a lack of knowledge for one way or the other. The way you're appealing to it is pointing out that hole in the knowledge and then using it to sway to the point that you want to be made from it. I'm not saying I'm Wonder Woman, I'm just saying no one has ever seen me and Wonder Woman in the same room. So that there is an appeal to ignorance. There's no proof that I'm Wonder Woman. It could be proof that we've never been in the same room together. We simply don't have any information one way or the other. We have this one little fact that could be a coincidence because how many people have we seen in a room with Wonder Woman? But that suggestive appeal there is to the ignorance of proof one way or the other. Hasty generalization. We have this fast talking dude again.
Well, Welcome back to Fallacy February.
Here's our fast talking dude on hasty generalizations.
Using an unrepresentative sample to conclude a general rule, or taking a small or non-random sample to make conclusions about a population. This is really common when you see stereotypes. Those are a great example of this. And it's the opposite of the fallacy of accident. Because the fallacy of accident uses a general rule and applies it to a uncommon case, well, this takes an uncommon case and tries to make a general rule out of it. Let's take a look at some examples. So, I just saw a blind person mug someone, therefore all blind people are thieves. It should be really clear why this is fallacious. I opened a can of pop and it exploded everywhere, therefore all cans of soda will explode when opened. Islamic fundamentalists crash planes in the World Trade Center, therefore all people that believe in Islam are violent. With all of these arguments, there is something going on that makes the case that the person observed different or special that doesn't allow it to be applied to a general rule. Unless you have a lovely, randomly selected, and large enough sample size, you shouldn't be concluding general rules out of anything. That was hasty generalization. Also today we're going to be looking at indirect proof, part 2. Yesterday we looked at
Okay. Hasty generalization, easy enough to recognize, right? Especially when we deal with things like race or maybe an object doing something that we know isn't typical. Animals, like, do all pit bulls bite?
No.
No.
It depends on how you rate them.
Some of them are just sweeties, right? Do all men cheat?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Do most men cheat? Straw man fallacy.
Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
I love him.
Okay, a straw man fallacy is when an opponent's argument is distorted or misrepresented to make it easier to refute, maybe reworded or oversimplified. So here's just a small example.
Let's talk about your opponent's picture. Besides the economy, reproductive rights, taxation, the environment, and education, where do you and Sue Kelly differ?
Well, she voted for this war, which I would not have voted for. She voted for...
So you met us, you sit down.
No, but...
So that was the fallacy right there, arguing like, oh, you voted against this, so you want to see Saddam back in power? Like saying, so this is what you're arguing, this is what you're saying. It's one possible result, one like assumption that's what he's saying. And clearly he's doing it in a joking way here, but like we see that a whole ton in politics is looking at one possible ramification of a politician's announced policy might be, and oh, so you want this to happen. Like, that's not what he just said. It's something that could happen or could result or might be reminiscent of certain things with that, but it isn't at all what he just said. And now look at him. Look at his sad face. He's like, no.
I'd love to see a convincing plan that would show us a way to victory in Iraq.
Stay the course.
I've heard that, and
But it didn't sink in.
well, I think that
Okay, and then stay the course, which is generalizing his argument as something that is already taking place in the White House policy with maintaining our presence in the Middle East, and saying like, oh, so you want this? And it's like, no, it's so much more complex than that. He wants a policy that has things in common, but generalization of his views, with negative connotations. So here, Colbert is using those generalizations to refute what he's saying by pointing out, bad results or bad connotations. Okay, here's some Obama quotes. This also brings in false dilemma. So we have straw man, where we're overgeneralizing certain arguments, and then the false dilemma is a response to a complicated issue that reduces to a simple either or choice. Let me see if we can find where those are. Just like this one. Do we want to spend on defense or not? Okay, there's a middle ground where we maybe don't spend like 68 cents on every tax dollar on missiles, bombs, tanks, planes, and boats. Where we're not necessarily giving up the defense that our country really desperately needs in its atmosphere, but we're also maybe not putting that amount of money into it. This is a false dilemma where you think you have to choose yes, spend, or no, spend. it's very complicated, and there's a lot of numbers in between 7 trillion and 0 that could possibly be used. So we see that a couple times in these Iraq clips.
Why are folks working so hard for people not to have health insurance? Why is it that everybody's so eager to use military force? And by the way, what's wrong with helping young people get ahead? It's a vision that's...
All right, so that was what's wrong with helping young people to get ahead. He's overgeneralizing arguments against spending on education and student loan stuff probably there as, oh, so by saying they don't want to spend all this money, they're saying they don't want to help young people. That's really overgeneralizing it. That's not what they're saying. Most of these things are arguments over the amount of money to be spent, which again, isn't necessarily $1 trillion and isn't necessarily 0.
says up to 50 million Americans have to lose their health insurance in order for us to reduce the deaths. I reject the view that says our problems will simply take care of themselves. But
Look how young he looks there.
Yeah.
What has the White House done to this man? Look at him.
He's like all gray now.
Yeah, 8 years. I mean, he was probably dying it when he first got in, because look at like what Bernie Sanders is facing. No one wants to think of an old dude dying in office in the middle of their stuff, but
he's
his
smart.
face is everything. Like, oh, I love Bernie. He's like, I've never missed a day of work. He's the only senator still doing his actual job and voting while he's on the campaign trail. Like, he's by far got more energy than me. I don't know how he does it. Whatever that Gaiman juice is, they got an IV of that.
But we reject the belief that America must choose between caring for the generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future. We do not have...
So there he was rejecting a false dilemma. You know, either this or that. He's saying we reject that. We can maybe do both moderately.
to choose between markets that are unfettered by even modest protections against crisis. I know some folks on Washington and on Wall Street are saying we just focus on their problems. There are those who say these plans are too ambitious. We should be trying to do less, not more. There are those who embrace a view that can be summarized in 2 words. Anything goes. There are those who say we cannot afford to invest in science.
And in these, he's not really even naming a person whose argument he's refuting. He's just saying, there's those that say this. So unnamed people whose policies that he doesn't like saying, this is a terrible thing to go for. What I'm going to do is that. It's unlikely that those who are saying that are really willing to just drop the educational program, drop the defense program, you know, that they're probably not that extreme, but examples of him generalizing those and then getting to his point, so he's using it as a way of contrasting his views with ones that he's pointing out as, oh, this isn't the way to go.
Been told by our opponents that bigger tax cuts and fewer regulations are the only way. Voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. And to say that we have an interest in pursuing peace and freedom beyond our borders is not to say that every problem has a military solution. Enduring security and lasting peace do not require perpetual war.
Okay, does that make those two definitions clear? Do we see how those reflect? Any questions on those? Okay. Red herring. This was one of our homework questions. So that was something that was said so many times it just made me sick in law school, because when the professors would write the exams, which were usually a couple pages of facts, they'd then give a question about how can Bob sue Mary? And you know, somewhere in there we have Bob getting in a fight with Mike and all this other stuff happening where, okay, so Bob hit Mary's car, but then Bob spun out of control and also hit, you know, 3 other people. Those are like red herrings. Like, it'll give details about those other accidents, but like the core question would be, how is Bob going to sue Mary? Not how is Mike going to sue Bob? How is it, like all these other things. But they would put the facts in these problems, and you know, the trick was really to highlight those in a different color, cross them out, like get them out of your hair. But those are red herrings, and if you have any classes that are really heavy in essays or really heavy in analyzing stuff, there will be information that doesn't matter to you, but that looks important, that talks about it just as officially, that gives you numbers and stats, and you can disregard it, but because it like looks so good, the appeal is there to start talking about these things. Really, the key to those types of essay questions, but also to like anything you're doing in life is focus on the question at hand. Don't get distracted on these other things. Focus on what are you trying to achieve, and then what facts matter. So we have a TED Talk on this. And this is a little off topic. It's not dealing with words. This guy's a pickpocket.
Oh, I remember this.
You saw this one? Yeah, I saw it a long time ago too, and I wanted to play it just because I thought it was funny. I thought it was good. I thought we could use a break from the definitions. But also, it brings into real life what I just talked about maybe happening on paper. I also thought that this played in with the last chapter about human perception and how we can't perceive everything at the same time. Like he'll talk about when you pickpocket someone, you bump them. But you don't walk around and think I have my wallet in this pocket, my phone in this pocket, wallet, phone. Like no, you have to deal with the world. You bump into a person, you're thinking, oh, is this socially awkward? Should I apologize? Like your brain immediately is like, turn and see who it is. Like you're not thinking your wallet's gonna get stolen, and this distraction in your perception and your human need to not be worrying about your wallet at that time, but to worry about who you just bumped into distracts you enough where people like, what's this dude's name? Apollo Robbins can make a couple extra bucks.
I like TED Talk.
I mean, I watch a lot for this class, and then I finish my stuff, and then it's just more TED Talk. I've also been watching a lot of John Oliver last week tonight. Highly
Do you
recommend
think
it.
it's possible to control someone's attention? Even more than that, what about predicting human behavior? I think those are interesting ideas if you could. I mean, for me, that'd be the perfect superpower. Actually, kind of an evil way of approaching it. But for myself, in the past, I've spent the last 20 years studying human behavior from a rather orthodox way. Picking pockets. When we think of misdirection, we think of something as looking off to the side, when actually it's often the things that are right in front of us that are hardest things to see, the things that you look at every day that you're blinded to. For example, how many of you still have your cell phones on you right now? Great. Double check, make sure you still have them on you. I was doing some shopping beforehand. Now, you've looked at them probably a few times today, but I'm going to ask you a question about it. Without looking at your cell phone directly yet, can you remember the icon in the bottom right corner? Bring them out, check, and see how accurate you were. How'd you do? Show of hands, did we get it? Now that you're done looking at those, close them down, because every phone has something in common. No matter how you organize the icons, you still have a clock on the front. So, without looking at your phone, what time was it? You just looked at your clock, right? It's an interesting idea. Now I'll ask you to take that a step further with a game of trust. Close your eyes. I realize I'm asking you to do that while you just heard there's a pickpocket in the room. But close your eyes. Now, you've been watching me for about 30 seconds. With your eyes closed, what am I wearing? Make your best guess. What color is my shirt? What color is my tie? Now open your eyes. By showing hands, were you right? It's interesting, isn't it? Some of us are a little bit more perceptive than others. It seems that way. But I have a different theory about that model of attention. They have fancy models of attention, Posner's trendy model of attention. For me, I like to think of it very simple, like a surveillance system. It's kind of like you have all these fancy sensories, and inside your brain is a little security guard. For me, I like to call him Frank. So Frank is sitting at a desk. He's got all sorts of cool information in front of him, high-tech equipment. He's got cameras, he's got a little phone that you can pick up, listen to the ears, all these senses, all these perceptions. But attention is what steers your perceptions, is what controls your reality. It's the gateway to the mind. If you don't attend to something, you can't be aware of it. But ironically, you can attend to something without being aware of it. That's why there's the cocktail effect. When you're in a party, you're having conversations with someone, yet you can recognize your name and you didn't even realize you were listening to that. Now, for my job, I have to play with techniques to exploit this, to play with your attention as a limited resource. So if I could control how you spend your attention, if I could maybe steal your attention through a distraction. Now, instead of doing it like misdirection, throwing it off to the side, instead what I choose to focus on is Frank. To be able to play with the Frank inside your head, your little security guard, and get you, instead of focusing on your external senses, just to go internal for a second. So if I ask you to access a memory, like, what is that? What just happened? Do you have a wallet? Do you have an American Express in your wallet? And when I do that, your Frank turns around. He accesses the file. He has to rewind the tape. And what's interesting is he can't rewind the tape at the same time that he's trying to process new data. I mean, this sounds like a good theory, but I could talk for a long time and tell you lots of things, and they may be true, a portion of them. But I think it's better if I try to show that to you here live. So, if I come down, I'm going to do a little bit of shopping. Just hold still where you are. Hello, how are you? It's lovely to see you. You did a wonderful job on stage. You have a lovely watch that doesn't come off very well. Do you have your ring as well? Good, just taking inventory. You're like a buffet. It's hard to tell where to start. There's so many great things. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Hi, sir, could you stand up for me, please? Just right where you are. You're married, you follow the directions well. That's nice to meet you, sir. You don't have a whole lot inside your pockets. Anything down by the pocket over here? Hopefully so. Have a seat. There you go. You're doing well. Hi, sir, how are you? Good to see you, sir. You have a ring, a watch. Do you have a wallet on you? Well, we'll find one for you. Come on up this way, Joe. Give Joe a round of applause. Come on up, Joe. Let's play a game. Pardon me. Don't think that you need this clicker anymore. You can have that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Come on up to the stage, Joe. Let's play a little game. Now, do you have anything in your front pockets? Money. All right, let's try that. Can you stand right over this way for me? Turn around and let's see. If I give you something that belongs to me, this is just something, half a poker chip. Hold out your hand for me. Watch it kind of close. Now, this is a task for you to focus on. Now, do you have your money in your front pocket here? Good. I'm not going to actually put my hand in your pocket. I'm not ready for that kind of commitment. One time a guy had a hole in his pocket, and that was rather traumatizing. I was looking for his wallet, and he gave me his phone number. It was a big miscommunication. So, let's do this simply. Squeeze your hand. Squeeze it tight. Do you feel the poker chip in your hand? Would you be surprised if I could take it out of your hand? Say yes. Good. Open your hand. Thank you very much. I'll cheat if you give me a chance. Make it harder for me. Just use your hand. Grab my wrist, but squeeze. Squeeze firm. Did you see it go? No, it's not here. Open your hand. See, while we're focused on the hand, it's sitting on your shoulder right now.
Whoa.
Go ahead, take it out. Now, let's try that again. Hold your hand out flat. Open it up all the way. Put your hand up a little bit higher, but watch it close there, Joe. See, if I did it slowly, it'd be back on your shoulder.
Ow.
Joe, we're going to keep doing this till you catch it. You're going to get it eventually. I have faith in you. Squeeze firm. Squeeze. You're human. You're not slow. It's back on your shoulder. You're focused on your hand. That's why you were distracted. While you were watching this, I couldn't quite get your watch off. It was difficult. Yet you had something inside your front pocket. Do you remember what it was? Check your pocket. See if it's still there. Is it still there? Oh, that's where it was. Go ahead and put it away. We're just shopping. This trick's more about the timing, really. I'm going to try to push it inside your hand. Put your other hand on top for me, would you? It's amazingly obvious now, isn't it? It looks a lot like the watch I was wearing, doesn't it? Thanks. But it's only a start. Let's try it again a little bit differently. Hold your hands together. Put your other hand on top. Now, if you're watching this little token, this obviously has become a little target. It's like a red herring. If we watch this kind of close, it looks like it goes away. It's not back on your shoulder. It falls out of the air, lands right back in the hand. Did you see it go? That's funny. The little guy, he's union. He works up there all day. If I did it slowly, it goes straight away and lands down by your pocket. I believe, is it in this pocket, sir? No, don't reach in your pocket. That's a different show. That's rather strange. They have shots for that. And I'm not sure what that is. That's rather bizarre. Is this yours, sir? I have no idea how that works. We'll just send that over there. That's great. I need help with this one. Step over this way for me. Now, don't run away. You had something down by your pants pocket. I was checking mine. I couldn't find everything. But I noticed you had something here. Now, feel the outside of your pocket for a moment. Down here, I noticed this. Is this something of yours, sir? Is this? I have no idea. That's the shrimp. Right. You've entertained all these people in a wonderful way. Better than you know. So, we'd love to give you this lovely watch as a gift. Hopefully it matches his taste. But also, we have a couple of other things. A little bit of cash. And then we have a few other things. These all belong to you, along with a big round of applause from all your friends.
Wow.
So, thank you very much. So, same question I asked you before, but this time you don't have to close your eyes. What am I wearing?
What?
No, his shirt's untucked, but he doesn't have his tie on.
Well, he had a purple shirt on
Yeah.
and a tie.
Attention is a powerful thing, Like I said, it shapes your reality.
Right.
So,
Probably like when he
pose
went
that question
behind
to
him
you,
or something, would it
draw
maybe
somebody's attention.
unbuttoned
What
and
would
put
you
it
do
to
with
the side? I don't know.
Thank you.
I didn't notice that either. I didn't watch this whole thing. I knew it was
Maybe
good.
you wanna watch it over and then come over and get attention.
What you can do if you got a smartphone, they have a TED Talk app, and you
We're
can sit
back
and watch
in
TED
black
Talk.
during the Black Friday sales event
I've
at
got it on
Toth Buick
both my
GMC.
phone and my tablet.
Oh my gosh.
So that's our lesson on red herrings. But they happen on paper just as easily. They happen in verbal speech. Yes. So I hope that one drives that one home. You know, I think he got the watch off when he was holding his hand like this and probably slipped the band out, and as he took the pressure of his hand away, had the watch in it. He's touching them all over and stuff, and like each one of those touches is that guy is focusing on his hand, so he's not thinking of everything else. You know, when he told him to squeeze it, that's putting even more attention, like using those muscles. You're probably not thinking about your leg. It changes the stance of your back. All these little things that he's using are red herrings so he can accomplish whatever goal he has. Unwarranted assumption. A fallacious argument that contains an assumption that is not supported by evidence. I have a clip for this. These are definitely something to watch for as someone's speaking to you. They're claiming these facts. They all sound groovy, but are they supported by any evidence? Before you believe them, you might want to fact check. Newspaper and definitely like the major news sources, terribly, terribly guilty of this stuff. But also, you might make them too. You just assumed something, you took it from another speaker, you trusted mass media, you trusted the news, you repeat it in an argument, it turns out to be false. You look pretty bad. Here's an example of Bill Maher. He loves to attack religions, and he does so with Islam in this one, but says some stuff that really makes him look terrible. So this is to point out the danger of believing them, and then also the danger of speaking them, because think of yourself as Bill Maher. It's a little embarrassing.
Defenders of Islam insist it is a peaceful religion. Others disagree and point to the primitive treatment in Muslim countries of women and other minorities.
So let's discuss this now. We're joined now by Reza Hassan, a scholar of religion, professor at the University of California, Riverside, the author of Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth.
You guys here?
Let's talk about this because it's a very interesting conversation every time we have it. Before we get into this discussion, I want to
I think we're all the way up on everything.
play you this clip from Bill Maher's show just this Friday night.
President Obama keeps insisting that ISIS is not Islamic. Well, maybe they'll all practice the Muslim faith the same way he did. But if vast numbers of Muslims across the world believe, and they do, that humans deserve to die for merely holding a different idea, or drawing a cartoon, or writing a book, or eloping with the wrong person, not only does the Muslim world have something in common with ISIS, it has too much in common with ISIS. There's so much talk. You can applaud here.
He went on for a good 5 or 6 minutes about that, talking about how women are circumcision for women, not respecting the rights of women, not respecting the rights of gay people. And what's your reaction? And we'll talk.
Well, I like Bill Maher. I've been on his show a bunch of times. He's a comedian, but frankly, when it comes to the topic of religion, he's not very sophisticated in the way that he thinks. I mean, the argument about the female genital mutilation being an Islamic problem is a perfect example of that. It's not an Islamic problem, it's an African problem.
Well, wait, because he says it's a, hold on, because he says it's a Muslim country problem. He says that in Somalia.
Yeah, but that's actually empirically, factually incorrect. It's a Central African problem. Eritrea has almost 90% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Ethiopia has 75% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Nowhere else in the Muslim majority states is female genital mutilation an issue. But again, this is the problem, is that you make these facile arguments like that women are somehow mistreated in the Muslim world. Well, that's certainly true in many Muslim majority countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you know that Muslims have elected 7 women as their heads of states in those Muslim majority countries? How many women
But
do
it is
we
not,
have
but
as
for
head
the
of
most
states
part,
in the United States?
Reza, to be honest, for the most part, it is not a free and open society for women in those states.
Well, it's not in Iran, it's not in Saudi Arabia, it certainly is in Indonesia and Malaysia, it certainly is in Bangladesh, it certainly is in Turkey. I mean, again, this is the problem, is that you're talking about a religion of 1.5 billion people, and certainly it becomes very easy to just simply paint them all with a single brush by saying, well, in Saudi Arabia they can't drive, and so therefore that's somehow representative of Islam. It's representative of Saudi Arabia. In Iran, they don't have.
I mean, I think that Bill Maher's point is that these aren't extremists. We often talk about extremists and that we should crack down on extremists and why aren't Muslims speaking out about extremists. In Saudi Arabia, where women can't vote and they can't drive and they need permission from their husband, that's not extremists.
Okay, so she just didn't like where that was going. Do you think that that might have been an equivocation of Bill Maher's theme? Equivocation is where you change the definition of a word throughout the argument. Now, all of a sudden, Bill Maher is not talking about the 1.1 billion Muslims. He's talking about only the extremists. This is the first time in this news presentation that this is being introduced, that this is solely related to extremists and not all people of that religion. Even though we just saw a clip where Bill Maher encouraged the audience to clap at him saying Islam is too much like ISIS. In general, no, hyphen, drop a footnote, but only the extremists. So there we already have her guilty of one of our fallacies to direct this argument in her preferred direction rather than our fact checker on the right.
Why aren't we talking more about what? That's not extremist, that's commonplace. Why don't we talk more about the commonplace wrongs that are happening in some of these countries?
It's extremist when compared to the rights and responsibilities of women, Muslim women around the world. It's an extremist way of dealing
But
with
it's not
them.
extremist in that, it's not extremist in that country, in Saudi Arabia, that's what the
Oh, no, it's not. I mean, look, Saudi Arabia is one of the most, if not the most extremist Muslim country in the world. In the month that we've been talking about ISIS and their terrible actions in Iraq and Syria, Saudi Arabia, our closest ally, has beheaded 19 people. Nobody seems to care about that because Saudi Arabia sort of preserves our national interests. You know, this is the problem, is that these kinds of conversations that we're having aren't really being had in any kind of legitimate way. We're not talking about women in the Muslim world. We're using 2 or 3 examples.
They did the same thing to 2 Chainz. She, what's that one news lady name? She attacks a lot of people. I mean, she's a debater.
Let's look it up.
She basically.
Is it Nancy Grace?
I think so. Basically, she had 2 Chainz come on.
Yes.
And basically, it was talking about legalizing weed.
Marijuana.
Yeah, and so she stopped talking about the legalization of legalizing marijuana. She started talking about his rap music and how in his family and why is his name 2 Chainz, and talking about how he grew up in a well-raised household and went to college and all this other stuff, and basically was just saying, how is it that you're going to smoke? How is it that you're a good influence? Well, basically, you can't tell nobody that they're a good or a bad influence just because of the things they choose to talk about or things things they're doing. I think he's a good person. Everybody have bad ways. You can't just judge about one negative thing they do. And who's to say weed is negative or positive? Everybody got their own ways and opinion how they feel about something.
That's a circumstantial ad hominem.
Yeah, she just kept on trying to talk him down, or every time, and then I liked it that she just assumed when he opened his mouth he was gonna be so ignorant to everything she was talking about, and he was making her look dumb. So it was just funny.
My roommate does hip hop. He won a Cleveland contest and got to open for 2 Chainz in Myrtle Beach. So listened to a lot of 2 Chainz in 2014. Let's watch a little bit of this. And I encourage you guys to bring up examples. I'll look them up. Let's check it out. If it works. Come on. Nancy Grace demolished the pot debate.
No, she didn't.
No, she's demolished.
Oh.
Sometimes she says good things, but
Also,
sometimes she
Judy
doesn't.
Boyd with us from my old stomping grounds, College Park, Georgia. Now one of the most famous rap stars in the world. You know, 2 Chainz. First of all, thank you for being with us. You're a star. So many people, so many teens, so many young adults look up to you. Can I ask you, when you hear about cases like this, why do you still support the legalization of marijuana? Because, you know, I know your persona is different from your rap persona. I know, for instance, you graduated with a 4.0, that you got a scholarship. That's 2 Chainz Happy Birthday Jam Records. Why do all the guys have on regular clothes and the women have on skin-tight leopard suits? You know, I don't know the answer to that. But why do you advocate legalization of pot when you hear stories like what I'm talking about?
Well, from the stories that I just heard you talk about, they had alcohol included, which we all know, you know, cause you to black out, forget things, and have memory loss. They also dealt with irresponsible people. I don't think that you could put an umbrella on the whole community off these communities.
So he's pointing out a hasty generalization, which is a non-representative sample being used to evaluate the whole.
Incidents that you just named.
Well,
So
what
first,
community is that? The potheads?
the smokers, the stoners community. I just feel like you can't use these particular stories
Okay,
to
so
define everybody that has recreational use.
I'm not defining everybody, okay? So don't throw me in that pot and stew me. What I'm saying is legalizing pot ends up in stories like this. And you, with so many people looking up to you, advocate legalization of pot. And I don't get it. I mean, I've seen video of you smoking a big fat doobie. I mean, I've read your lyrics. I know what you say in your songs. But when you hear stories like the mom and the dad on the front porch, the baby dies in a fire, then my next story, everybody, that's 2 Chainz Twitter account. That's him smoking pot. And while I have you, why the 2 Chainz? Just curious.
2 Chainz was obviously my second time, you know, coming around as far as a rapper. My first name was Titty Boy, but the name came from an internal thing with my mom, me being the only child, me being a spoiled brat, me being breastfed, so the whole family called me Titty Boy. But then when it was time for me to really go out here and make a name for myself, I figured like 2 Chainz could obviously mean this would be my second chance, and then 1 chain being who I am, and another chain basically being what I thrive to be. So it had a little deeper.
You know, in one of your lyrics, you say, I don't fear death or dying. I only fear not trying. And some of your lyrics are so incredible, but then other of your lyrics advocates a different kind of lifestyle. A different kind of lifestyle that I don't think you would want little children exposed to. I mean, do you have children?
I have 2 beautiful little girls, and I'm a great father. I just feel like, you know, everybody should basically take care of their own. You have kids too as well, right? So it's about governing your own household. It's about taking care of your own property. It's about having some kind of structure in anything.
I hear you. 2 Chainz. I hear you. But what I'm saying to you is this. People listen to you. And while you may be able to get high and your children are kept away from that and they're not growing up like that, is my guess, is my hope, other people don't have the advantages that you have. Okay, Liz, show me the video of Jessica Gamble out of Ohio. This mom, look at this 2 Chainz, this mom making her 2-year-old child smoke pot. Watch this. I want you to watch it.
That's her.
Look at this baby.
That's what I was telling you earlier about trying to classify her.
In regards to legalization, though, It's not legal now, and a parent's doing this. And you could just as easily make a 2-year-old drink alcohol.
Right.
So I don't
See the difference.
And she looks ignorant, right? Like, how is this an argument that has anything to do with legal? It's like gun control stuff. Like, you think that all those guns are going to get turned into the amnesty barrel if they say we can't have guns anymore? No, the people that want it already have it. This is about that money not going to the mafias down in Mexico, not going to drug lords, not going to...
And then they make it easy for guns to be, you know,
right.
What they have, what's the things called when people go to the gun shows, where you can buy guns and stuff. They show you different guns, like you're selling guns.
Right.
Like you don't even have to have a license to get them. You
Canes. I don't think you have to have a license to get into Canes.
Yeah, it's just like this stuff will happen whether or not it's legal. So the fact that it's already happening with it being illegal, see, and that's like we'll talk about it in a little bit, like a causal fallacy where you think legalizing it will cause this stuff. That is clearly false because it's not legal and this stuff's already happening.
Yeah.
And like with worse than marijuana, we have meth, we have heroin, we have crack, we have coke, we have all these things, and no. This isn't Colorado, this is Ohio.
I felt like she was irresponsible. I felt like she was a bonehead. That was an imbecile move. Anybody that loves their kid definitely knows not to put them in harm's way, and that's what she So I don't agree with that at all. I mean, she may have mental issues. It may be something deeper than a joint, I believe.
Well, you know what? There is something deeper than a joint, and that's well put. Because what she's doing is child abuse. And what I'm trying to say to you is that if this is legalized, then everybody is going to have unlimited access to pot.
Oh my God, everybody can get it.
Oh yeah, like don't we already have unlimited
My
access
husband
to
can
pot?
go to his best friend and get weed.
But everybody has
His brother.
the ability to get their hands on pot right now.
So she's pretty much saying just because that woman was trying to get her kid to smoke weed, that when it's legalized, everybody
can get weed.
Smoke weed.
Yeah.
This doesn't prove that it can happen right now, and it's not even legal. Hello?
Yes. So, okay, I mean, we gotta get through this because I wanted to do an exercise today, so I will go back.
This one, she drives me nuts. I can't even stand watching Nancy
She wouldn't let him
Grace.
finish a single
No, she
sentence.
wouldn't. You saw my frustration. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, when I first seen it, I'm like, she don't shut up this man talking.
It's like,
That's
oh.
how she is with every topic.
That's what my husband used to watch her like all the time. It drove me insane. I'm like, okay, I gotta leave the room.
And now she has a cooking show.
Oh my gosh. Okay, begging the question. And I want you to pay attention here because this talks about how begging the question is used to mean the wrong thing a lot. It's that it just asks the question, but begging the question in a technical sense actually means something different and specific. So let's look at this
Gentleman
definition.
thinker. Philosophical concepts explained in brief in a posh English accent. Begging the question. Contrary to popular usage, begging the question is a technical term that is often misapplied. In logic, begging the question is assuming the conclusion you're trying to prove. It's a type of circular reasoning, first identified and written about by Aristotle way back in the 4th century BC. For instance, the Da Vinci Code is a true story. How do you know? Because it says it's true at the start. What you've done there is you've assumed that everything in it is true in order to prove that it is true. You've actually appealed to the very thing in question, namely the truth of what's written in the book, as proof of itself. You've gone in a circle. Try this one on for size. My boyfriend doesn't lie to me. How do you know? Because he says so. How do you know he's telling the truth? Because he's honest. Again, you've actually used something as proof that is the very thing we are trying to question. You'll often hear people say begs the question when they actually mean raises the question. Don't get them mixed up. They are not the same. Interestingly, the actual phrase begging the question comes from a mistranslation. The medieval philosophers who looked at the Latin petitio principi correctly identified petitio as being derived from the Latin verb petere, meaning to beg. That's where we get the English word petition from. But petere can be used to mean make for, seek, desire, attack, move towards, or claim, as in you claim the conclusion as one of your premises. Subscribe to Philosophy Tube for more from the Gentleman Thinker. Till then, cheerio!
Okay, definition pretty clear from that. The soul is immortal, since it lives forever. Since it does not die, thus it is immortal. So there's just some philosophy speak where if you break it all down, he's proving something by just restating in different words what you already set out to say. That was one of the examples I could find. Inappropriate authority. I brought this up when we looked at Ozzy selling us butter, that Ozzy's not a food flavor scientist, Ozzy's not a dairy farmer, he has no way of telling us that, can't believe it's not butter, it tastes like the real thing. We shouldn't be looking to Ozzy for butter versus margarine advice. I have two clips here. Inappropriate authority from a stranger, which the book talked about as anyone with fancy letters after their name. I now have an ESQ after mine. People in a lab coat, you think that they can tell you a little bit about their health. Well, you don't go to a foot doctor for your heart problems, vice versa. The guy testing makeup on a rat might have the same coat as a brain surgeon, and you don't really want to confuse them. Just by somebody's appearance or a doctor in front of their name or a PhD in a field other than what you're studying aren't necessarily reliable sources for information. We're also going to talk about inappropriate authority with familiar faces, which gets to celebrities trying to sell us stuff. We trust them just because we've seen them in movies and like their appearance and like how they talk and maybe saw them in some good interviews. Let's look at, love this show when this was on, but how...
Is it what I think it is?
Dinosaurs.
The dinosaur one? Oh, I love that show.
Yes. So here is an example of how we might have an inappropriate appeal to authority through a stranger just based on their appearance.
I miss that show.
Your Honor, the flatness of the earth is one of the most hallowed precepts of dinosaur tradition. Yet there are those among us who would require some proof that the world is flat. Fair enough. Let the record show that I now offer absolute and unimpeachable evidence. A guy in a lab coat. You are an engineer with lots of impressive degrees. That is correct. And you work at the We Say So Corporation.
We Say So Corporation.
See, classroom code division. And just what have you brought here to show us today? Only this. And we have a warehouse full of these things. Proving up for you, Missy. Huh? Yes. That's it, friend. We're in trouble now. Obviously, if a company the size of We Say So throws the full weight of its corporate clout behind the concept of a flat earth, who are we to question? Well, I'm told guilty.
Okay, and then that touches on some stuff from chapter 4 about evidence and how it's presented to us. For example, the milk industry was called out in our last chapter about for years and years and years saying, drink milk, it makes your bones stronger. And now nutritional scientists agree if you're an adult and you drink milk, that doesn't actually add calcium to your bones. But we trusted it because it's the industry. It's a huge umbrella of corporations that are putting this on their bottles and shipping them out and telling us this in commercials and claiming it. So we trusted it because they might have been an appropriate authority in that sense, but this overlaps, even if they are an appropriate authority, who's funding them? Here's an inappropriate authority. Ashton Kutcher probably doesn't take many of his own pictures. He certainly looks cool doing it.
Nikon Coolpix S60. Its touchscreen makes it one of a kind. Its lens makes it an icon.
He is one of the smartest guys in Hollywood.
I like him. I like him a lot. He has good messages, but
he's a techie.
Takes commercials on once in a while. Okay, maybe he does know a little. In that commercial, he's not really in a black suit explaining the science behind it, but maybe he has some technical clout. Loaded questions. You should have a definition for this. A particular answer is presumed to an unasked question. Do you still beat your wife? It's implying that the person being asked did beat their wife. So the unasked question is, you beat your wife before, haven't you? But without asking that, by saying, do you still do it, it's presuming, like, no matter what you answer, no, I don't beat my wife anymore, you're still basically admitting yes to the fact that you had. If you say, yes, I still do, well, then you're just, in a bad situation all around. Loaded question.
Or like if you watch that one show, Steve O, and you're like, are you a rapist?
Right.
I never even bothered to even say I was, or if I wasn't. Just say yes or no. Like, that's how you know you are.
Yeah, it's a dirty thing actually used in the courtroom. There's under the rules of evidence, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to ask about a person's past, or things might have been suppressed in pretrial situations. But even if the witness doesn't have to answer it, or even if it is totally made up, once you ask the question, it's out there. The opposing counsel is going to object, but the jury just heard you ask, like, you used to be addicted to cocaine, didn't you? Objection. Okay, you don't have to answer that. But by asking it in that fashion, you've already implied something. So that's a dirty courtroom move. You can get in trouble for it. You can get a mistrial, but this is definitely something that's used in questioning in front of a jury. And on TV interviews as well, like Nancy Grace wouldn't let 2 Chainz barely finish an answer, so a lot of what she said, he didn't even have a fair chance to respond. And on those shows, Nancy Grace owns that stage, so you're subjecting yourself to her interviewing tactics. Does this dress make me look fat? That's a loaded question. False dilemma. So we looked at that a little bit when we went over the Barack Obama skit, that we're suggesting that it's one or the other, when really there's a whole bunch of possibilities in between that could possibly lead to a conclusion that is neither yes or no, not a million, not zero, somewhere in between. Yes on spending, no on spending. Who would you rather see live? So this is saying, like, we should test on animals to make products safe for kids, but might there be some other way to test these compounds? If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. It's possible that you're paying attention and you just have your own reasons for not disagreeing with whatever the maker of this sign was mad about. Questionable cause, false correlations. A questionable cause, in Latin post hoc judgments, is when a person assumes without sufficient evidence that one thing is the cause of another. That we assume marijuana being legal will cause parents to allow their 2-year-olds to smoke it, or force their 2-year-olds to smoke it. No, the availability of pot, or the legality of pot, clearly had no stake in that argument, since that took place in a state where it's not legal. Here's some other example.
Our first issue, sir, is our low productivity and record high worker accident rate. Any suggestions? A round of layoffs might wake up the idiots.
Here's what caffeine in the water cooler.
Those are my ideas. You people don't think, you regurgitate. That's why I promoted someone who's in touch with the workers. You. I think you mean him, sir. You then. How would you improve the worker situation?
Well, sir, for one thing, we had a problem every Tuesday when the cafeteria would serve fish
Fish sticks? What in blazes are you talking about?
Well, sir, they cut the head off the fish and chop up the rest of the sticks and then put seasoned bread.
I know what fish sticks are. Get to the point.
Well, you only get this tiny little cup of tartar sauce to dip in them, and I always run out.
Will you stop wasting our time, Simpson? Shut up, Smithers. Can't you see what he's saying? A happy worker is a busy worker. 3 cents worth of tartar sauce could save us thousands of man-hours in labor. I like the cut of your jib, Simpson. Let the fools have their tartar sauce.
Enjoy your tartar sauce, boys. Enjoy. Give me your plate. Don't groan. Plenty for everybody.
Brilliant. Who could ever have imagined that Simpson's sweeping reforms would pay off so quickly? No, sir. Accidents decreased by exactly the number that Simpson himself is known or suspected to have caused last month. And our output level was just as high during Simpson's last vacation. My dear tired old Smithers, Do I detect a note of jealousy?
Okay, so what was the real cause of the heightened accidents? But just so happened to correlate on one day with an improvement and the increase in tartar sauce. So that was a really silly one, but you know, we do see them all the time, especially in complex issues where multiple things are the causes. To point to just one, like pointing to transportation as the sole cause of global warming, when really we have a cattle industry that's pumping just as much CO2, if not more, into our atmosphere. That's a really big one these days. Questionable cause, the sharpshooter. Here's an example of just, you know, to narrow this category down a little bit, and this example was given in the book as well.
Someone might want to build something new. So they commission it. Put a team together. Bring in a satellite office. Sketch together. Sketch apart. Scale it up. Scale it down.
What is that?
It's gonna be a
Get
service where you
organized.
pay
And
$10
break
a month
ground.
to have it where no
Know if you can work with anyone, anywhere, any way you want.
You might as well. Like, I don't have cable, I pay Netflix, I pay Curiosity Stream. Like, I'd rather.
Hey there,
That's
internet
the stuff I
commenter.
watch.
You've been sent a link to this video because someone is concerned that you are not arguing. Fallacy is one where an argument is made and confirmed using the exact same set of information. It's named after a story about a Texan shooting at the side of a barn. After firing the last round, he walks over to the barn and draws bullseyes around the sets of holes that make him look like a great shot. Essentially, cause and effect are reversed. We believe the Texan is a great shot because of the appearance of his targets, when in fact the appearance of his targets is determined by his shots, which are nothing special. In conversational practice, a Texas sharpshooter ignores information outside of a desired result. Only things which have hit a target drawn ex post facto are considered worthy. For example, Mike and Strong Mike are talking about very awful and morbid statistics for workplace fatalities. In the United States, we focus most of our workplace safety efforts on protecting women rather than men. Over 90% of the victims of workplace deaths are male. It's awful how many people die each year on the job. I think it's important to note that all of the most dangerous professions, construction, shipping, and manufacturing, are in heavily and historically male-dominated industries. To address your concern that we're worried more about women's workplace safety than men's, I think we should be looking at men and women doing the same jobs in the same industries. Strawmike has drawn a target around statistics which support his most likely pre-existing idea that men are second-class citizens. He has ignored outlying information, specifically that there are more male victims of workplace death because historically there are fewer women doing the most dangerous work. Not because, or not just because, a lack of appropriate protection for male workers versus female workers. The Texas sharpshooter is related to confirmation bias, a type of cognitive bias where people have a tendency to interpret things in ways which confirm their own beliefs, ignoring that which challenges or disproves them. Which is to say, you might not be a Texas sharpshooter on purpose. Your sneaky brain might be doing it for you. But ignoring conflicting information is no way to win an argument. If you're standing on the shoreline, facing inland is not going to keep your feet dry. I hope this discussion of the Texas sharpshooter...
Okay, so there's the Texas sharpshooter using the example of, you know, differences in the data available, you know, men working dangerous jobs, women in other ones, and drawing a conclusion from that, which is, you know, clearly false, that we don't protect men and we do protect women. Single cause, and this is the one I just talked about with global warming. Dad saying people died of cancer before cigarettes were invented, so smoking doesn't cause cancer. Well, there's a lot of things that can lead to cancer. It's not to say that, you know, cigarettes are not a cause just because they came after. I think they invent new things that cause cancer every single day. Slippery slope. Gay marriage will lead to bestiality, just like how women voting led to hamsters voting. A slippery slope is the faulty assumption that if certain actions are permitted, then all actions of this type will soon be permitted. We legalize pot, tomorrow we're going to legalize coke and then meth, and then people are just going to be able to do whatever they want. No, the line will be drawn somewhere, and logically, just because you push it a little bit doesn't mean that it's going to get now set out 10 miles from where we are now and everything will be allowed. But that's something that advocates against a certain freedom or expansion of rights often argue.
I think alcohol is only legalized because it's man-made.
Okay. In what way?
Like, well, it came before us, so I'm pretty sure whoever did legalize it, they had, I don't know, they had that. It just has something to do with connection, because I feel like maybe the people who is in politics, they don't feel like it's illegal because they do it, you know, like it helps them ease their mind, but in all reality, it really is. It's just as strong as crack and heroin and everything else. Like,
and we had prohibition for a while.
Alcohol comes from the earth too. I mean, grains and
squirrels get drunk all the time.
Yeah, things like that. So
if you just let a piece of fruit sit as the sugars
like
break down, it ferments and turns into alcohol. There's a lot of
you can
animals
make homemade alcohol.
Yes.
Just like potatoes. Vodka comes from potatoes.
I don't know.
Naturalistic fallacy. This one was for Demetrius. He didn't come.
The naturalistic fallacy says that if it's natural, it's good. If it's unnatural, it's bad. Committing this fallacy might seem harmless enough most of the time. Maybe the guava nectar shampoo sounded good to you. Or maybe you like organically grown foods because it sounds more healthy. No man-made chemical fertilizers. But you know what that means, don't you? It means they're growing your food in a fertilizer made from a slurry of cow shit and fish guts
I was
instead.
just talking about this yesterday.
Now, if you want to buy shit and guts lettuce, you might guess. But I've noticed that people fall into this trap about all kinds of moral issues too, which is what I want to focus on. It's easy to imagine that nature knows what it's doing. I agree that there are a lot of things in nature that just seem to be in perfect balance. When we cut ourselves, we heal. The tides
We got 15 minutes, guys.
Some would say that these things are evidence of design. But was this a design with intelligence or intent? Crude forces like gravity can form worlds without the benefit of intelligence. A process like evolution can filter maladaptive traits from populations, behaving just like a designer with no intelligence required. There has been far too much trial and error involved in evolution for us to mistake our existence for a planned outcome anyway. Natural selection has been a wonderful designer, but it has been too wasteful and too pitiless for us to accuse it of having intent. Of course, there are examples in nature where it can be said that intelligence was involved in design. There are plant species whose flowers are colored the way they are simply because the local insects could see those colors better than others. Since the favored plants were visited more frequently, they became the favored breeders. In a sense, the colors were selected for by the insects like humans breeding dogs. I can imagine that this sort of intelligent design goes on all the time in nature, which is part of the reason things seem designed. It's part of the reason I think it's been seductive for us to rely on nature to decide how it ought to be. A good example is the gay rights debate. Both sides arguing about whether homosexuality is natural. Both sides arguing about whether it's a choice. In my opinion, homosexuality is natural and it's not a choice, but those things shouldn't even matter. Of course, the whole reason this even comes up is because religious folks in America have to make a secular argument, and the only ones available to them are these weak-kneed logical fallacies.
Okay, and I think we've gone over this in class before, naturalistic arguments for and against
But this is why we should resist them.
homosexuality. I think that might have been on our study guide as well.
Against and
Yes.
for.
So I wanted a little bit more time for this, but for at least 10 minutes, and I'll give the 15 points for whatever we get done. I wanted to go through some of these practice questions. So please just take notes as we go through them. Let me know what letter we're doing. You don't need to rewrite it. And as we discuss as a group, fill in what we decide the fallacy is. Some of these are more exciting than others, so I'll let you guys pick. Look over, these are the worksheets right out of the book. Which one do you want to talk about? Tell me what you think it is, and tell me why you think that's what it is.
Do we have to write it down on a piece of paper?
Yeah, please just take notes. I'll grade you on what you write down from our discussion. My goal was to be like, okay, let's get 15 done for the 15 points, but we're not going to get that far.